Hello there. On today's show, there's a lot going on. Apparently, there's still a strike going on in Hollywood. That's not an apparently; it's in its week 6 now, so it's getting pretty serious. Also, the Little Mermaid review, we finally finished editing that video, so we'll show you that video. It came out quite good. Some background and some never mind. Apple Vision Pro, we're going to be talking about that. That's the big news of the week in tech. I know it's not movie related, except that Disney isn't sponsoring them, so I guess that counts. Transformers Rise of the Beasts. It's a new movie. It's a Transformers movie, but it's the one without the BAYHEM. But it has BAYHEM, but Michael Bay's not directing it. So can you really describe it as BAYHEM? Is it BAYHEM if it's not directed by Michael Bay? We'll talk about that. Also, there's we're about halfway through the year, but there's a lot of movies that are left to come out, and we want to make sure that we talk to you guys about what our most anticipated movies for the remainder of the year are, because this is one of those years where there's a lot of movies coming out, like every year, except there's more this year. And then we still have more to talk about after that. I'm sure we'll get into topics we haven't even planned on talking about. That happens every year, every week, I should say. And with that, let's start the show. Where's the intro package? I don't want to play the wrong intro package. Here we go. Oh, look, I'm back. I'm the self-indulgent fan of BAYHEM, and I'm also the only person on the screen right now, which feels very weird. So I'm just gonna fill in the screen with a couple of co-hosts. So here we go. They look a lot better than I do. On my left, we have Mags, and on my right, we have Angelina. So on today's show, we have a lot to talk about, and I'm talking with a mic that is not connected to anything, but you guys can still hear me, so that's all that matters. So how are you guys doing?
Good. I'm good. Apparently you're good too. I feel like we're all in silly, goofy moods this morning.
That was just that was stellar. Thank you, Dan,
Yeah,
for
thank you. I mean, you're the
starting with
know-it-all,
a bang.
so I wouldn't know any better. But, yeah.
I just loved it. Can you do BAYHEM without Michael Bay in it? Yeah, let's find out.
That's the question, right? It's like a basic cable.
Yeah.
Right before you throw it to a commercial, like the voice of God would come on, or not come on screen, but come on speaker, I suppose, and it would say something like, but is a Transformers movie not directed by Michael Bay still gonna have BAYHEM or something to that effect?
To be fair, every single film critic review I've read, they always compare it to Michael Bay movie, which it's
As
something
they
to be
should.
proud of, I suppose.
It's the first Transformers movie that's named Transformers. I mean, they did Bumblebee, which was directed by Travis Knight, but who, by the way, is the son of, I think, Phil Knight, who was like one of the co-founders of Nike, who Ben Affleck played in that Air movie. Fun fact I found out this week. But anyway, so this is the first Transformers movie with the word Transformers in the title, not counting for the 1980s Transformers movie.
Dan, what's with the microphone? Is that a prop, or are you actually speaking to it? Because you keep waving it.
It's a total prop. There's nothing connected to it.
I love it.
For what? For what?
I don't know.
I'm like a cat just following the microphone.
There's an actual mic over here.
Wait, so the Michael Bay ones? It was Transformers. I'm confused what you mean by that.
So Michael Bay made 5 Transformers movies, like Transformers, second one I always forget the title of. The third one was Dark of the Moon. The fourth one was The Age of Extinction. Then the last one was The Last Night, or the fifth one was The Last Night. Then they did a Bumblebee movie, and then they decided we're gonna go back to doing Transformers movies, not Bumblebee 2, except Michael Bay is not directing them anymore. So,
but the Bumblebee was actually critically acclaimed to some
it was
degree.
the highest critically rated Transformers movie to date. The second one was called Revenge of the Fallen, which I think refers to the Decepticons, which fell in the first movie.
But what do you mean about this is the first movie to use the name Transformers? I don't see how that.
This is the first Transformers movie since the first Michael Bay Transformers movie that isn't directed by Michael Bay. Basically, what I mean is, if you look at the title of the film, it says Transformers: Rise of the Beast. Speaking of which, let me put up the graphic here. Oh, by the way, welcome to the show. Blah 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 blah. Language warning, spoilers warning. Now we're talking about Rise of the Beast. So that's the name of the
Is
title.
that the language one for me? Because I definitely realized that I've just been like blurting expletives out left and right.
It could be for me, you know,
I
like
got
when I
yelled
say
at by my
mayhem,
orthodontist, actually.
Happens to me as well.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Think it's to
Yeah, I was
all
just
of
gonna say
us.
when I say things like BAYHEM, like, you know, some people might take offense to that. So there's a language warning.
The
for that.
expletives. Oh, the expletives.
Yeah, so this isn't even switched on. There's like an off and on switch. It's off.
Just honestly, my eyes just keep going with the microphone. It's
You are swiping it across like a cat toy. Actually, after she said it, I noticed it.
Okay. All right, I'll keep this out of the way so we can focus on the review. All right, so basically the point I've been trying to make for all this time is that Transformers Rise of the Beast is the first Transformers movie with the word Transformers in the title, because Bumblebee is a Transformers movie, but it's not really called Transformers Bumblebee. It's just Bumblebee. So this is the first Transformers movie where they're focusing on like the group of them that's not directed by Michael Bay in the 21st century. Like there was this movie, I think in 1986 or something, that was the very first Transformers movie for the big screen, which wasn't, you know, well received at all. Since then, every Transformers movie that we have seen has been directed by Michael Bay, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they went on a break. They did a Bumblebee movie right before the pandemic, and then instead of doing a sequel to that, they just decided we're going to do a prequel to all the Michael Bay Transformers movies. This takes place in the 90s, and therefore, you know, Transformers Rise of the Beast. And in the 90s, back in the actual 90s, there was this TV show on air, which was a really badly animated, but somehow...
Well, there were a lot of Transformers animated cartoons. There were a lot of them. They're just like in
our
general, like a lot of them.
Yeah.
I still love Beast Wars. It looks terrible, but it looks like the worst 3D animation you've ever seen. It's like the first Toy Story, except 10 times worse. But the point is, though, like you still kind of geek out over the fact that there's these animals that can transform into robots. I'm like how cool is that? So they were basically taking inspiration from that TV show, and I believe they've, you know, made action figures out of those characters too, which is basically what Transformers is originally. They're an action figure line, like G.I. Joe. Hint, hint. We did give you a spoiler warning, but anyway. So Transformers.
So early.
So before the show, everybody, Mags accidentally let out a little spoiler, and Dan is very upset about it. He's bitter.
Not accidentally.
I am very upset about this.
That was on purpose, because I was like, I don't even know what that is. Why is this important? Why was that like the key sequence at the end? But it was nice to see the dog what was his name? Yeah, Dog from House of Cards.
I mean, you know, what I was going to say, it's basically like if you hadn't gone to see the first Iron Man movie, but like somebody told you, oh, you know, Nick Fury shows up in the end, you're like, and then you just kind of walk away because like now all of a sudden the rest of the movie is ruined. No, it's not.
I didn't realize you were such a fan.
Yeah. Anyway, Mags.
Mags is the only one that went to go see this movie. So you want to let us know what you thought about it?
First of all, I actually had to take the notes of all the names that are featured there, because there was a lot of terminology and a lot of bots and terracons and everything that I had to get myself familiar with. So that was the tricky part. I feel like during the epilogue, I was sort of lost. Not epilogue, sorry, prologue. I was kind of lost because I had no idea what any of those names are, apart from Optimus Prime, which I think everyone knows.
Isn't it confusing when you haven't like seen, when you don't know what the Beast Wars and all that stuff is so
it
much
really
that
is.
There's an Optimus Prime and then there's an Optimal Primal. Is that confusing?
Was it not Optimus Primal? Is it Optimal Primal?
I think it's Optimal Primal.
Okay, he's the member of Maximals. Okay, so all the animals are Maximals essentially, which was
no. There's just like there's Autobots and Decepticons. I think there's Maximals and Predacons. And the Predacons are the bad animals.
Yeah, the Terracons are the bad aliens, which are like servants of Unicron. See what I mean? Hence the notes. I actually have the whole tree
Are you wait, are you
Incredible.
sure they're not
Yes.
Predacons? Oh wait, they are
No.
Terracons. Oh, did they not
Terracons.
introduce that? Because again, I have not seen the movie. So did they not introduce the Predacons in this movie at all?
Do you want to take over,
Dan is
Dan?
on something
How
today.
about I let you?
Sorry, I'm gonna be quiet now. I've turned off this microphone, so I'm just gonna stop talking.
No, I can let you introduce it, but like, no. Autobots versus Terracons. So Autobots is Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, and all the good guys. And then there are Terracons who are the baddies. And they're servants of the Unicron, sorry, who's this like a huge giant world eater that it's essentially the size of the black hole that just like
Oh.
swallows the planets. And I thought it was quite interesting, and I already said it in my short, like, my expectations for this movie after, like, Michael Bay movies were very low, and having said I only have seen the first and the second Michael Bay movie, so I have no idea what happened afterwards. I haven't even seen Bumblebee. But yeah, my expectations were super low. I wasn't looking forward to it, but I strangely enjoyed it. It's not a great film. It's not a bad film. It's just it's okay. The
The Rotten
involvement.
Tomato scores, the Rotten Tomato score is like 53%, right now. What would
Yeah.
you say? Because that's really low. I feel like even like kind of meh movies are around 70. So what
Yeah.
do you think is making that score so low?
I mean, because there was nothing innovative, like the story, the characters, the stakes. It was all very much the same. It just felt like another Michael Bay movie, but like with a different dress on, if you know what I mean. It just felt different.
Yeah.
But there was just nothing innovative, nothing new, nothing fresh. I just really personally enjoyed all the Transformers. So like literally whenever there was like an action sequence and the Autobots or the Terracons were changing into like their alien forms and stuff, I thought that visually looked really cool. The 90s hip hop soundtrack kind of helped it a little bit. So there were all those things that were seemingly working, but overall the whole film was just like, okay, yeah, fine. Like, I cannot even remember, like, apart from the whole world eating bit, I just don't really remember anything important. Like, there's the main character, there's the Elena and Noah. They're the two main kind of characters. There's a one thing that it's kind of different for Transformers, but there was just nothing new for me to, like, love this film or, like, say anything more than that. It's good. It's okay. It's like not even good. It's okay.
I
It's
just
not
feel
the
like
worst
this
thing.
is one of those series that really needs to take a breather, and instead they keep pushing out more movies trying to one up the last one, and it's not working.
It's probably since the Bumblebee's success, I feel like they tried to recreate it. They tried to recreate the success or like the critical acclaim of this, and it just didn't work. It's a bit stale, it's almost boring. Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrible. See, it's like I haven't watched anything past the first 3 Michael Bay films. I haven't seen Bumblebee yet, but now that we're talking about it more, I'm definitely going to go see it. Right now, I'm still making my way through the MCU universe. Let's not talk about it. So overall, I mean, what would you say to people to get them to want to go see this movie?
Like, as Dan said earlier, if you have seen the Beasts, or is it the Beast War or whatever that is?
I think it's Beast Wars, right?
Beast Wars, yeah.
The Beast Wars. I suppose it does give you this nostalgia kick, I suppose. And the concept is fine, but like after having seen Thanos and Infinity Wars and everything, you just cannot come up with anything new or anything unique for that story. And also I feel like because they gave themselves this limitation of being a prequel, they couldn't kill off any major characters. They couldn't really introduce any major characters, like enough for them to stick. As Dan already spoiled, they have opened like this G.I. Joe universe in a way. Maybe there's just going to be some collaboration, but overall it just felt like a movie from 2014, not a movie from 2023.
Oh
Sort of
yeah,
thing.
that does not excite me at all.
But
Dan, do you want to?
did I even answer your question? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess not. I think you just gave them the message, subliminal messaging of "Don't go see this movie; it's boring." But like,
Yeah, it's not. I mean, there are worse films. There are worse films.
Dan, do you want to go through the background of how G.I. Joe and Transformers are connected? Because I didn't know that.
Yeah. By the way, before I do that, I just wanted to point out this one review, this Chris Wagner review from the Rolling Stone on Rotten Tomatoes. He basically said Beast encourages you to let your eyes glaze over through the plot exposition and embrace the visceral nonsense. It's dumber than a box of hammers, but it doesn't drip with the rote cynicism of say fast text. And to me, that just says, you know what? It's a Transformers movie. Enjoy it for what it is, and
Yeah,
I can live with that. Like, you know, like for me, like here's the thing: if you look at the score of Rise of the Beast, like you mentioned, Angelina earlier, 53% right now, 156 reviews. The number of reviews will probably go up, but at this point, the score is settling somewhere in the 50s. The audience score is, you know, much higher in the 90s, which means they're having fun with it. If you compare this now to, like, you know, how the other movies were received in the past, I'm pretty sure the original Transformers movie, like its audience score was like in the same range. Like, I'm just gonna do this right now because I thought I already did, but the Transformers, the original Transformers movie from Michael Bay in 2007, had the highest score of the not, except for Bumblebee. Let's take Bumblebee out of the equation. The rest of the Transformers movies, the original Transformers in 2007 had a 57%, as you can see there on your screen. And since then, outside of Bumblebee, this has been the highest rated Transformers movie. So it's
but the beauty is we all have seen it. That's the magic of Transformers.
But no, I get it. Yeah,
they're rubbish, but we still watch them. Weirdly, it still like gives you this, because I enjoyed it, but as you know, film critic, it's not a good film. But whether I had my, I don't know, dopamine hit at certain scenes, like it did make my heart race at like couple of times,
maybe the reason is because there wasn't any BAYHEM in it. You know, we didn't have those big gunpowder explosions going off. And
there has been BAYHEM. So to answer your question from the beginning, you can recreate BAYHEM without.
But it's not quite the BAYHEM when Michael Bay's not doing the BAYHEM, like part of the BAYHEM.
It's just mayhem with an M.
It's just mayhem. It's not BAYHEM. You know, like that's what it is. It's not quite the same thing.
I think also the biggest question is, as this franchise continues to go, if they continue to try to emulate Michael Bay without bringing Michael Bay back, they're never going to succeed. Like, they need to like go with a new direction. I don't see how that is gonna work.
Well, how old is Megan Fox?
She left after like the first.
Bring Megan Fox back.
She left after the first two. She hasn't been in this franchise in years.
She left on the third one.
Yeah. So, but okay, let me just go back and quickly answer the question that Angelina had. So, you mentioned that this movie, like, and of course, again, spoiler warning, Mags notwithstanding, because she already spoiled it for us. Right at the end of this movie, there's a post-credit scene which I wasn't aware of until a few minutes before the show started, where they try to basically, and this is something where like the fans of these franchises, like if you're in the theater, you're like, oh my god, like, you know, it's your Nick Fury moment from the first Iron Man movie at the end of that film, how Nick Fury comes in and talks about the Avengers Initiative. But in this movie at the end, they have a connection that basically ties this franchise into the G.I. Joe franchise, which is exciting, but at the same time confusing, because I don't know if that happen. That it's tying, like, I can't tell if this is tying into the G.I. Joe franchise that like The Rock and Channing Tatum were in, or if it's tying to the rebooted version that Snake Eyes was a part of recently, or if it's something new entirely, like if whatever the case might be. But the point is, Angelina, you hinted at this earlier, they are connected originally because these are all Mattel toys. like not Mattel as in like, you know, steel and iron, Mattel as in Mattel, the toy company. I'm pretty sure they own Transformers now. I'm just going to confirm that.
Wait, so should there be a cameo from Barbie here soon too, or?
So, no, actually, you know what? Hold on. This is. Am I wrong about this?
Imagine
It might be
Greta-
Hasbro.
Greta Gerwig just
Margot
brings
Robbie
in
pop up at the end.
Transformer.
I'm dead.
No.
Love
Okay,
it.
see, I was wrong about this. I'm confusing my toy companies. Hasbro is
There you go.
Transformers and GI Joe. Mattel, I think Mattel is
Barbie.
more Barbie, yeah. Okay, sorry. Bunch of toy movies coming out this year. But you know, my favorite movie from a Hasbro brand, of course, is Battleship. You know, it's clearly one of the best movies ever made. You should watch that, especially if you're a military sci-fi fan. I really love Battleship. It was really creative how they did all. Okay, I'm going off track, I've been told. So getting back on the BAYHEM, as Mag said earlier, it's not the best movie. You know, she's a maximal know-it-all, so she would know. But with that said, I would like to kind of wrap this segment up by saying I'm looking forward to watching this movie soon, whether it's at home like Fast X because it bombed so hard at the domestic box office. They already put it on streaming. I don't think that's what's going to happen with this movie. It's one of those movies, it's one of those franchises that performs extremely well internationally, whereas domestically, when I say domestic, I mean US and Canada, Transformers movies have not been doing so well, especially since like the first three. I think after the initial trilogy, they've really relied on international box office. So I hope that it does well. It's not, according to most reviews, the best thing ever, but it certainly looks like it's the best Transformers rated in terms of critics ratings since the first Michael Bay movie, except it doesn't have the BAYHEM. But I'll have to just learn to live with that, unless Angelina gets her way and we get Michael Bay back in the director's chair for the next one, which I do sincerely hope so. I would love to get the real BAYHEM, like give him a few drones, give him an ambulance, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal. Why is Jake Gyllenhaal in all of his movies? I'm like, why? Okay, sorry.
They have some weird bromance.
But they did Ambulance last year. Anyway. Okay, so time to move on. We've clearly spent way too much time on this topic, a lot more than we wanted to, honestly. So we're just gonna shift over and talk about the rest of the year that's in movies to come. There's a lot of movies that already come out. We're sitting here in the middle of June. We're basically halfway through the year. It's one of those years that truly feels, it's not one of those years, it's the first year since the pandemic that truly feels like a year that we're going back to the movies in a way that feels like it did before the pandemic, when there would be a big movie coming out every week for like 4 or 5 months of the summer time, and then the rest of the year still had plenty of other good movies to come. Like even last year with Top Gun Maverick and all the Marvel movies and a couple of DC titles and all the big ones that came out, all the big franchise films, as well as the Everything Everywhere All at Once, the critical darlings. It still felt like there were times of the year where you were just sitting there waiting for a big movie to come out. Whereas this year, there is no shortage of them. So we've already had a bunch come out. We've been talking about them on here. There's a bunch more yet to come. So we wanted to kind of take some time and take a look ahead to what are the most anticipated movies of the remainder of 2023. And we wanted to each make our picks and then, discuss them with you guys. And then, of course, we can kind of, look at them and kind of defend our picks, if you will, or maybe tell you guys the reasons why we picked them out. So since I'm, the host of the show and I'm a fan of BAYHEM, that just gives me the entitlement that I need to go through my picks first. So as I said, and the microphone is back because I just feel like Bob Barker with this, like, and
I'm gonna start purring in a second. Like, if you keep like waving it. Oh.
Okay.
Look
all
at
right.
me go.
Cool.
Anyway.
Now that that's out of the way. Here are my most anticipated movies for the remainder of 2023, and there are quite a few. So I actually had to leave a few, off the list, and we did not have an honorable mentions list. So unfortunately, I had to pick 5. I wasn't one of those people who cheated and said, movie 1 or movie 2 instead of just picking one. We will get to that in a little bit. But wait, don't cheat and remove it. Yeah, there we go. You're keeping the list the way it is. All right. My first most anticipated movie for the remainder of the year is the Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. It's probably the longest movie title you're gonna see the remainder of the year, especially in a year when you don't have an everything everywhere all at once. But it's a Tom Cruise movie. I'm a big Tom Cruise fan. Unlike some other people on this panel, I don't know what's wrong with
There
you,
is
but that's
not
okay.
one,
I
but
feel like
two parts.
he loves himself too much. Like, why are there 8 Mission Impossible movies? Like, he's getting
I
old. Just give it up. Give it up.
isn't
Pass
this the
the
seventh?
torch. Do
This is
something.
technically this isn't the 8th movie. The 8th movie will be
Well,
part 2 of this movie.
It's the 7th movie. I'm so sorry. 7 Mission Impossibles. Like, who does he think he is? Shonda
Yeah, I
Rhimes?
mean, what is
And there's another one.
Like, come on.
Because this is part 1. We have
Part
part
one.
2 coming out.
By the way, did
as
you
well.
guys hear
Damn.
that this movie is going to be like the longest Mission Impossible? That there was a legit like 3 to 4 hour cut of this film, not like an early assembly cut or like one of the midpoint like rough drafts or whatever. They had a pretty ready to go version of this movie that was like close to 4 hours, and of course, Paramount's not
people
gonna let
were revolting. They said absolutely not.
And why would? Of course, they should, because that's way too long. The longer the movie, the fewer show times you have in a day, the less money the movie can make. And I know this is one of those movies that Tom Cruise, like he did with Top Gun Maverick, he's gonna want to give it the most amount of time in theaters as he possibly can, because that's in his mind the best way to watch this movie. And why would you not? This is one of those movies where every 5 or so minutes he's jumping off a cliff or somewhere like on a plane. He's done a ton of big stunts for this, and he's trying to outdo himself as he usually does.
I would say that's probably the only thing that I really like about Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible movies, because his acting is like, is that he does a lot of his own scenes.
Speaking of Tom Cruise, Scientology leader David, what's his name, Miscavige, he's missing, so it might be a bit of a drama. Sorry, that's off topic, but I thought it would be quite interesting that maybe his
Tom Cruise probably took him up to space and left him there.
Literally. I bet he
I'm
was
not blaming
involved.
anybody. I'm not trying to start any rumors. We're just gonna get back to the topic here. As a fan of BAYHEM, I can appreciate a Tom Cruise stunt, and I'm looking forward to a lot of his new stunts in this new movie. Turns out he jumped off a cliff like 30 times for one of the stunts. So he has the work ethic. Speaking of work ethic, the second movie on my list is Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer is actually the only movie on all 3 of our lists.
That's the good preview of what's to come. But let me keep talking here. Thanks for interrupting me, co-host.
Dan is so sassy today. What is
incredible?
This microphone does things.
It's
to
the
you.
microphone.
It empowers you. Yeah, I'm telling you.
The power of sass.
Be nice.
I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to be nice. I'm just going to say Oppenheimer is a Christopher Nolan film. I'm probably one of the biggest Christopher Nolan fans around. So that's all I will say about that. The fact that they did a lot of visual effects stuff in camera, like Christopher Nolan likes to do. I'm really looking forward to seeing how some of those sequences, especially with the explosion, like
Cillian Murphy as well.
Atomic bomb.
That's pretty exciting that he's making a comeback.
Are you kidding me? Like everywhere you look, literally, it feels like one of those movies where every frame of every scene of every minute of this movie, you're gonna have like A-listers like splattered across the screen.
It's beautiful.
In a good way. So, and of course, he shot the whole damn thing on IMAX cameras, like not like IMAX cameras like Top Gun Maverick, IMAX certified cameras that were in the cockpit of the airplanes. They had like this huge like IMAX camera that had a big IMAX film, like shoulder mounted. Like you would look at the behind the scenes of this movie, I'm like, oh my god. Okay. So
I think Cillian Murphy is just probably one of the top actors of our time. He is so interesting to watch. Yeah,
he's very underappreciated.
Peaky Blind. I'm still a bit bitter about Peaky Blinders and how that flew slightly under the radar of everyone's, because it was an incredible performance.
I don't know. Oh, I think they might be doing a movie. I'm not sure. I know the
I've heard that.
Very last.
It's not over yet. I'm pretty sure there's more to come. Like they're gonna be doing movies and like maybe even like sequel series or something. I hope
so.
Yeah.
But okay. The third movie on my list is Blue Beetle. This is a DC movie for those of you who don't know what this is. It's a movie that's focusing on basically the first Latino superhero that in the DC live action films we have seen to date. And I really can't wait to see what this looks like because the trailer looks really funny. It's got George Lopez in it, so like that's automatically a plus for me. And just overall, the CGI actually looks surprisingly good. I think the CGI in this movie, for at least from the trailers, looks better than some of the CGI in The Flash, which comes out next week. So I'm very interested in this just purely out of a sense of curiosity because it's the most unique superhero movie on the calendar this year. And I know I'm saying that in a year where you have films as unique as Across the Spider-Verse. But what I mean by unique is this is the most unique live action superhero movie on this year's slate, where you really don't know what you're going to be getting from it. You kind of know what Aquaman's going to be. That's Jason Momoa doing his thing. You kind of knew what Guardians of the Galaxy was going to be. That's James Gunn and Chris Pratt and Zoe Saldana and all of those fantastic actors. You know what the Marvels is going to look like. We know what the Flash is about, Michael Keaton coming back and stuff. But Blue Beetle is real X factor. So just purely the sense of curiosity that I have for this movie is where that comes from.
My only concern is that it might fly under the radar like the Ant-Man did.
I'm concerned that it may not. Well, but the Ant-Man movie wasn't that good. Like Quantumania wasn't that. Like it was reviewed badly. So I'm hoping this movie gets good reviews, and then deservedly, if the reviews are good, it performs well at the box office. What movie will perform well at the box office, because it's a Marvel movie, like an MCU Marvel movie, is the Marvels. I don't know.
Original title. Original. The Marvels.
Wow. I mean, technically, that should be a DC movie because, like, technically, Shazam was the original Captain Marvel, but like, whatever, court cases and whatnot. So the Marvels. The reason why I'm excited about this is Miss Marvel is in it, and that was like my favorite Disney MCU show like they've put out to date. I really enjoy the diversity. I'm originally from Pakistan, so she's a Pakistani American teenage superhero in the MCU. So representation, all that good stuff. I can't wait to see this movie because I think she will steal this every scene that she's a part of. She certainly has a lot more charisma than most of the actors. I think she's probably out of the three Marvels in that movie the most charismatic actor. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the chemistry of the three together. Nick Fury's in the movie as well. Sam Jackson, he's always a good sight for your eyes.
Why is it not higher up on your list?
It's not higher up because I am simply more interested in Blue Beetle because of how different and new it is as a franchise. It's also much more of it's an MCU movie. Let's be honest. The MCU has become a bit stale of late. I mean, like the last 2 or 3 years, last maybe even 3-4 years. And Oppenheimer and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning simply, I think, are going to be more cinematic. Like, if you want to classify them in categories like, standard franchise movie making and masterpiece cinema, even though Mission Impossible is franchise movie making, I think Mission Impossible to Oppenheimer will stand from a visual cinematic storytelling standpoint, head and shoulders above any kind of visual effects or action set piece that Blue Beetle and the Marvels is going to have, because those are they feel a little more formulaic. Who knows? Maybe it's the complete opposite, but chances are it's not, because Tom Cruise and Christopher Nolan, you can trust that those guys will get the job done. The Marvels, I love the setup for that movie in terms of who is in it, what it's about, but I'm not 100% sure how good it's going to be. That's why
I watched the trailer at the last movie. I saw it last week or something, and it looks like it's going to be like a good movie. It's not going to be a great movie. It's going to be
it's got Transformers.
I'll go see it, but it's not going to be something I go to the movie theater to go see. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I can see that, and I agree with that. I'm gonna go see it in a movie theater, or hopefully I will. Like I've had a pretty bad track record of being able to get out to the movies of late, which is weird coming from somebody who has to talk about this every week. Anyway, so the last movie on my list is Dune Part 2, which is clearly a lot lower than some people would have it on their list, but it's there at number 5 simply because I did not enjoy the first one as much as I thought I would, because it felt like an incomplete movie because it was like half a novel's worth of movie. And that's not to say, actually, you know what? That is to say that they should not have broken up Deathly Hallows into 2 parts. That is also to say I would have preferred Dead Reckoning in 1 part as opposed to 2 parts. I hate it when they break up a movie into like multiple parts. Like really, that like you need to be that obvious about the fact that you're just milking it for cash. Not saying that's what Denis Villeneuve is doing here, but
I don't necessarily think that that's true because the first Dune movie was so long. It was so long. And the book is literally like 3 books in one. So, like, I don't agree with you on this at all.
Okay.
I don't want to sit through a 5-hour-long movie. I don't.
That's okay. That's fair. But my even bigger critique of that. Here's the thing: the visual effects in that movie are some of the best visual effects ever for any movie. Period. I cannot speak any more highly for the VFX of Dune. However, from a storytelling standpoint, it was very slow paced in many ways. It wasn't like the most watchable movie, and what I mean by that is I can watch The Dark Knight multiple times in a day. I can watch the Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one especially, multiple times in a day, multiple times in a week. There's even like, I can even watch Amazing Spider-Man movies multiple times in a week, or there's like certain other big franchise films. Like I think there's some Mission Impossibles, Fast 5, Furious 7. Those are the kind of like franchise movies that you can keep watching and watching and watching, and they don't really tire you out. And that's sometimes there's different reasons why movies tire you out, because they're emotionally heavy. Like the newest Guardians of the Galaxy movie is something that you need to invest yourself emotionally, and it's hard to go back and watch it again, like if you want to do it in the same week or the same day or the same month even.
It's been 2 years or 1 year since the
It's
first
been
one?
like
I think it's been 2
years
Yeah.
since Dune
Okay,
came
and
out.
I still haven't rewatched the Dune. And
I have
is
not
that
rewatched
kind
it
of
since I saw it.
I
yeah.
actually just rewatched it because my friend was like, I've never seen it, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, let's just rewatch it. I understood as little as I understood the first time, so much so that I ordered the book while watching it, hoping that the book would make more sense.
Wow.
There's so much expository writing and development needed that the author doesn't even give you. Like, I never knew that the Bene Gesserits were actually just humans called Bene Gesserits, and they're like the last of the humans. Like, the movie explains so much less than the book, and the book starts with like less, like little to no expository writing to explain.
And you still had a 3-hour-long movie, and it's still, you know
and
what I
that
mean?
kills me. Like, how am I going to have so many questions at the end of a 3-hour-long movie?
What is it, editing then? I'm not
I
sure
don't think it's edited. Well, here's the
I
thing.
don't think Denis Villeneuve was a bad choice, but I
No.
don't think it was cut through in the right moment.
Yeah.
And that book was unadaptable. And if you look at like David Fincher version, this movie is like a hell lot better.
Let's not go there.
Let's not even go there.
Literally, it's so
I will say
bad.
I
this
had
though.
nightmares afterwards.
Oh no.
All things considered, Denis Villeneuve did about as good of a job at Dune as anybody can possibly hope to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I really do appreciate the fact that the movie was, as good as it was.
Right.
However, I just think this is one of those books like Foundation, on Apple TV Plus, that would be better adapted as a TV series that gives you the platform to do like 8, 10, 12 episode seasons where you have the ability to really go deeper and like do all the longer explanations while having greater character development and having your action set pieces when you need them, without feeling like you need to squeeze everything into 3 hours. Like, can you imagine?
Were there even
would look
plans
like?
for the TV series of the Dune?
I don't know. Well, they were doing the Bene Gesserit series, like the Sisterhood of the Dune or something like that with Rebecca Ferguson. I don't know. They had a recent issue, like last year we got news, or I think it was earlier this year, that the showrunner had left the show or something like to that effect. So it seemed like they were gonna be changing directions in terms of what that show was gonna end up looking like. It's gonna basically serve to be a prequel to the movies and also kind of give us more insight into what the Bene Gesserit are, which is, ironic. Like, Angelina, you brought that up, that it's one of those things that was very nebulous in the movie. But in Dune Part 2, hopefully we'll get more of an insight into what that is. But at the same time, I'll be honest with you, I am worried that this second movie is going to feel as drawn out as the first one did. And don't get me wrong, but the movie was like good. It was really, really good. And visually, it was one of the most spectacular films that you have seen in the last 10, 15, 20 years. Much like Blade Runner 2049, with Denis Villeneuve also directed. but I'm worried about the pacing. So like editing, yes, I think was a part of the issue. There were some sequences where I feel like because they look so good, they didn't want to cut them any shorter than they did. They also had to cover a
Yeah.
lot of ground, and that's why I think this franchise could do better as a TV show. And a time when a TV show's episodic budget could be 30, 50 million dollars, you can definitely take what they did in this movie and turn it into a TV show without losing the scale and awe and spectacular nature of the visuals that this movie had. But yeah, here we go. Those are my 5 movies. Now, before I take up any more of your time talking about my 5 most anticipated for the rest of the year, Mags, I see that you have made some changes to your list,
Yes.
which
'Cause
is
I
what I
was
was afraid of because you're cheating. But okay, whatever. Go ahead. Just talk
I
about your list.
just I because you were moaning that I didn't have 5 films, and I thought, okay, there is a one film that I would be willing to okay, and I need to speed up. So here we go. Oppenheimer, we talked about it. Cillian Murphy, Chris Nolan. You have to go and see it in IMAX because it's Chris Nolan, and I haven't seen a single bad movie of Chris Nolan like to this date.
Even
This
Tenet was
guy.
great, despite its
What are you
shortcomings.
talking about? That was one of the best films I've ever seen
It's
in
the
the movie
thing is most
cinema.
people don't appreciate how it treats time travel and entropy because most people
Yeah.
don't understand those concepts well enough,
But
which is
just because you
fair.
don't understand the movie, it doesn't mean it's not a
It's a
good
bad
movie.
movie.
And
Exactly.
okay, it was genius. That's why if he actually gets to, I don't know, show us visually, like he showed us a black hole, if he's gonna show us the actual atomic reaction of a atom bomb, which I'm sure he will. Yeah, I'm sold. I'm sold. And to pair it nicely, there was what's his name? One of the big directors. He did Day After Tomorrow. Not Roland Emmerich. Anyway, there's a new documentary as well called Nuclear, essentially, and it's a really good documentary about nuclear weapons and atomic bombs, and essentially it talks about nuclear energy essentially as a source, and it makes a very interesting case how it has been blown up by Hollywood to be this like a dangerous force to be reckoned with, because of course it is. People are using it to kind of keep the peace within the world, but on the other side, it's just far more ecological and like earth-friendlier resource than coal or
Yeah.
gas. And the documentary is really, really interesting. Who
Are you
is it
talking about
done?
the BBC documentary, The Trials of Oppenheimer, or is this
Nope.
more? Okay.
Nope. It's, oh my goodness. I saw the nuclear.
Well, we'll look it up. We'll look it up.
We look it up in a
There's,
second.
I think nuclear energy is pretty safe as an energy source relative to like some other energy sources we use more of, like fossil fuels and such, in terms of how they're extracted and used. But yeah, I mean,
Okay, got it. It's called Nuclear Now, and it's by Oliver Stone. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
a weird one. Yeah, it's Oliver Stone documentary, and of course we know him from Alexander, obviously that awful film, but most importantly, no, why did I think he made the post-apocalyptic? Anyway, moving on. Oppenheimer. We should go and see it. Second one is Barbie, just because it's Greta Gerwig, and I'm a fan of Margot Robbie, and I'm really interested to see what they're gonna do with that. I think it might be very meta, very might have a lot of yeah, it might have a lot of like commentary on but even more like a lot of puns, a lot of commentary on the world, and that always hooks me in. So I think it'll be something worth.
Question?
Yeah.
Oppenheimer and Barbie are coming out the same weekend. Are you gonna go see both of them the same weekend?
Back to back. That's my plan.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna spend a day at the cinema. It's that kind of day.
Max, we can plan it and go together separately in our different parts of the world and like message on the Slack and be like, oh my God.
Love it. Let's do that. Okay, third, Wonka. I put it as big maybe only because I want to see the trailer for it first before I commit. It's Timothée Chalamet and I'm probably mispronounced his name.
Perfect.
No, you got it.
Yeah. Okay. Timothy. He's, I don't know what's with him and like being this eye candy for all women. Like all women are obsessing over him. He's a good actor, but like I know a lot of girls and women like in their early 30s that are obsessed with the guy, and I
He is so pretty, but he is so tiny. He's like this big.
yeah, he's
Like,
skinny.
he's
You would break him. He's like a twig. I don't get it.
I don't think I need to be a part of this conversation.
Anyway, moving on. June.
Oh,
He
no.
left.
He just like leaves the screen. But I
Oh my
totally
goodness.
no, I totally agree with you. I feel like a lot of people, even apparently he's dating Kylie Jenner now, which is like
Oh my
so
god.
random.
That
I
is
don't know what it
strange.
is with every single movie star. They have to date at least one of the Kardashian Jenners at
Yeah.
least for a month or two for like the media pool, and then it's over.
Yeah.
Like, what the?
I don't
what?
get it.
Just like
Not that he needs popularity boost or anything like that, but
that's just
it's
so weird. I
that's
agree with
random.
you.
Okay, moving on. Dune Part 2. We covered it pretty much densely before. It's on my list because I have seen the first one, and visually, again, I think it's a film that deserves to be seen on the big screen, but I don't have high hopes for it. And the fifth one, that's a film that like literally just came out. It's The Machine. It's a movie by Bert Kreischer, and it's not a good movie, and I haven't seen it, but I do want to see it once it's like available on streaming or the cinema or whatever, because it tells this crazy story that Bert Kreischer had when he did like a trip to Russia, essentially. And there's this like a famous stand-up that he does, and he tells the story. And they actually made the movie based on that. And it features him and Mark Hamill. Yes, Luke Skywalker plays his freaking dad. And I just thought, okay, if Mark Hamill said yes to that, my interest is actually there. So
it actually looks like he's really trying to come back and be more of a presence, in which like I feel like he disappeared for like 25 years. Obviously, he had like that very public battle with alcoholism, etc.
Yeah.
But like he was even there for Lisa Marie Presley, I believe, got a posthumous Hollywood Walk of the Star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and her daughter was there, and he wait, what am I? No. I'm so sorry. Posthumous Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was Princess
Carrie
Leia?
Fisher.
Carrie Fisher.
You mean Carrie
Just,
Fisher?
Like her name just like
I was thinking.
Yeah,
oh, that made me emotional.
Too.
That was so beautiful.
So they were there for that, and her daughter. It was very sweet because I feel like he hasn't been very active with his like presence for those kinds of things. So yeah, that was like a beautiful.
I really like that he's trying to just not be Luke Skywalker. That okay, he's finally, released from that. Like they killed him off. That's why he's not making a comeback. And now he was, I don't know, interested enough in that story, and and the film has awful ratings. I already checked, but I just need to see why he said yes to that. And I don't know if you watch the stand-up, that story, it's actually hilarious. And it actually happened. The funny thing was that Bert Kreischer, he posted it on his social media like soon after like this sort of went viral, and friends from his school essentially that went on that trip also, they were confirming that that story took place, and it's like 100% legit. But it's insane. Cool. It's an insane story that I'm excited. I'm just excited to see it. And I should have started The Bear season 2. So probably out of all those movies, I'm mostly excited for The Bear season 2, and this is a TV series. But if you haven't seen season 1, go and watch it, especially if you love any cooking, gastronomy TV series that are feeling like I don't know, horror movies.
Who is in it?
No one that big, but it has been recognized at the awards. So Jeremy Allen, the main guy who plays the main guy, he has received Golden Globe and stuff like that. That's why.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't realize they were making season 2 up until a few days ago.
All right.
And it's coming out this year. Go and see The Bear. But over and out. Angelina.
We've talked about the majority of my picks so far. Honestly, I couldn't even choose 5. I'm not I'm not that excited to see a great many movies. I feel like because the overall content this year is so extreme as far as, you know, blockbuster movies that are coming out in the theaters every single week, it's like you have to give me something to work with. And I feel like the last few movies I've seen have been good, but they haven't been great. And
Right.
it I think has made me kind of like, you have to give me more. Like, I don't want a great many movies. I want a few really good movies. I feel like there's so much being thrown out in the woodwork that's not being fully like thought through and like executed very well. And so that's been kind of like, I'm not in love with it. Number one, Barbie. I love me a Margot Robbie movie. We love Ryan Gosling. I definitely think Greta Gerwig is going to use the movie to have a big conversation about women and sort of overcoming, you know, still just a vast gap between females and males, like in the work world, etc. And I think it's going to be a big conversation on humanity, which I think is kind of, I agree with you. Like, I think it's going to be pretty meta, and I think it's going to be a bigger conversation than just that of like the graphics. But if you guys have seen the trailers or the photos, which they were all over Instagram, I am so excited to see it. I think it's going to be hilarious. Oppenheimer, big fan of Cillian Murphy. I love him. Anything he's in, I make an effort to go see. I think he's so interesting on camera. I truly think he is one of the best actors of our day. Like, I truly feel that. And I agree with you. Peaky Blinders didn't get enough love. I tried to shout it from the rooftops, like, go see this show. And I feel like so many people didn't. But the people that do give it a chance fall in love with it. And I think a big part of that is Cillian Murphy.
I just quickly, I gave during COVID where all the hairdressers were closed, I actually gave my partner a Tommy Shelby cut. And he went to the hairdresser after pandemic, and the hairdresser was like, who touched your hair? It was just, I full on did Tommy Shelby, like it was bold, like
oh
bold
my
around
god,
hair.
and just
It
like
looked
hair
cool.
at the top. I mean, I'm
It
sure
looked
it was
cool.
great.
It just looked wonky as
I 1000%. Actually,
okay.
during the pandemic, I did at that point give my boyfriend a haircut, and apparently I did a good job. But
Good job.
yeah, I was like,
Good job.
haven't tried it since. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I love Indiana Jones. I don't know. I just love the story and the heart. So I'm really excited about it. I'm a little scared about what the graphics and all of the CGI is going to be. If it looks like the Captain America CGI of like a really skinny Captain America, I'm going to be freaked out. So, you know, it's going to be
The trailers look good.
Yeah, I don't know. The trailers and the movie, like,
well,
so I'm a little
the
bit
Cannes
scared of
reviews
what's
don't
gonna-
look good.
The what?
they took it to Cannes Film Festival,
Oh, no.
and basically they thought it was gonna have like a huge reception, and I think
Well,
the score.
it did get standing ovation, but we did an
But
episode on Also Curious about standing ovation.
the standing
That's just-
ovation was for Harrison Ford more
Mm-mm.
than for the movie.
Okay, I hope
That
so.
I believe. But also, I feel like he's so synonymous with Indiana Jones. Like, when you think of Harrison Ford, you think of Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Like, those are the first two movies that come to mind.
It's Han Solo. Always and forever. Yeah. It's going to be Han.
I'm just gonna.
I don't know. I loved the novelty of Indiana Jones. Like, it's definitely like a novelty sort of like adventure movie. Which
I know what you mean.
I kind of think the opposite, in the sense that there is not much that's novel, especially if you look at the reviews for this movie about this particular Indiana Jones movie. A lot of the reviewers are saying, well, it's better than Crystal Skull, which I suppose is a compliment.
Was there. Yeah.
But like it's not a movie that that I would say is gonna perform as well as Disney had hoped. They have spent a good $300 million on this, and right now the box office projections for opening weekend are looking like $60 million, which means it's most likely not going to make enough money. Like, it needs to make $650 to $700 million to break even, and I don't think it's going to get there. particularly because, look, Fast X is a movie that, for all the shortcomings in terms of how good or bad it may be, it's making a lot of money in the international markets while it's struggling domestically in the US and Canada. I don't believe Indiana Jones can save itself because by performing well internationally or domestically. Like The Little Mermaid is the opposite, is doing really well domestically but struggling internationally. Same with Across the Spider-Verse. I just don't think this franchise as a whole, a franchise that hasn't put out a movie in well over a decade, a franchise whose lead star is in his 80s, I think,
He's
like
like
70s or
81
Yeah.
or 82.
I mean, they
So-
tried to make it hip. They attached Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but unless you have seen Killing Eve or Fleabag, you have no idea who that is.
I just don't think Indiana Jones is I mean, look, Top Gun Maverick, people will say, is a franchise that was 30 years old, didn't have a movie come out in almost 4 decades, and yet Top Gun Maverick was as good and did as well as it did. However, I think that's an exception to the rule, in the sense that you have a star who's still somehow in the peak of his prime in Tom Cruise, and he's now starting to look a little older, but he still doesn't look as old as he should. So it had a lot of novelty in terms of how they shot that movie, and there was a lot going for it beyond just the fact that, oh look, it's a Top Gun sequel. This movie, it feels like, oh look, it's an Indiana Jones movie. It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot more to it than that. They're obviously aging him down to look like his younger self in terms of Harrison Ford playing Indy, but and those effects in the trailer so far look really, really good. Like, I'm impressed by how good that looks. However, I am concerned, going off the reviews, and look, James Mangold, as good a director as he is, and he may have made Logan one of the best comic book movies of all time, but he also did make The Wolverine, where the studio jumped in and basically said, we're doing the third act our way. So he's not exactly the kind of director who's going to put his foot down and say, let me do my movie my way or the highway.
True.
So I'm concerned that this Indiana Jones movie, certainly if you go off the reviews and the fact that it didn't do as well at cons in terms of how it was perceived and the reaction it got, I'm worried.
What is the likelihood?
I mean, do very well.
Historically, after pre-shows, what is the likelihood that people go back and recut the movie? I know it takes a crazy amount of time, but I wonder if that's historically happened.
You mean
like
Snyder's
after
cut?
Con? Like if they re-edited?
Yeah, like if it doesn't perform well, what's the chances? Not just in this movie, but historically, has that ever happened? If the previews don't,
no, of course, Snyder's cut.
Well, no, but that's different. That's different. Like, that movie had an entire theatrical run. It really wasn't the version that Zack Snyder would have put out, because he wasn't on the movie by the time. As we know, Joss Whedon spent months working on trying to put it together with extensive studio notes. They reshot more than half of the version we got in theaters. So the version that we got from Zack Snyder felt like a completely different movie. Not entirely, but in many, many different ways. Very different situation. So maybe if you're going off of that idea, that implies that there's a bunch of this movie that is not going to end up on our screens now, and then they're going to later on do some sort of director's cut, which I don't believe is the case here. The problem with this movie, I think, is going to end up being not even how good or bad it is. I just don't think the Indiana Jones as a franchise quite draws the same reaction today as it would have 10, 15 years ago, because it's one of those situations where until like the J.J. Abrams movies came out and the new Star Trek TV shows started coming out, the fan base of Star Trek was literally getting old and dying. Like, I'm not trying to antagonize the fan base of Star Trek. They just weren't making enough new fans. And, since then they've kind of done things to improve on that aspect, where they're now starting to generate a new fandom, a growing younger fandom to match the legacy fandom that's been around for decades. I think Indiana Jones as a franchise is kind of past its expiration date, or it needs to either do a complete reboot, or it needs to change direction. And in many ways, I think this movie is going to go on to tell Disney what the franchise's value is in the future. Like, how many more years can you
the longevity?
I mean,
they
put it to rest.
They running out of ideas. It's no when I saw Phoebe on the screen, I just thought, oh, cool, it's his daughter. But then I remembered, no, we had that story.
Yeah.
That's that's her ankle now. And it's like, are you kidding me? This feels so forced, so unnecessary.
All
It's
right.
a
So you guys
shame.
aren't excited about that one, but I am. My fourth and final pick, it's Killers of the Flower Moon. It's a Martin Scorsese film, Leonardo DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone. It actually premiered at Cannes. It was really well received. We're not getting it until later on this year, but I basically sign up for any Leonardo DiCaprio movie because I really trust his process of choosing films. Like I've never seen Leonardo in a really bad film that I think he did really poorly in. I think he's a really incredible actor, and I think he has.
Three Musketeers.
I don't know if
or no, the one where he plays
Gangs of New
the
York.
prince.
The
Never
Gangs
mind.
of New York, yeah. And that was also Martin
It's been a while.
Scorsese.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I really trust him as far as the movies he signs on to do.
I completely know what you mean. He has aged well in terms of choosing his project, and he's been very careful.
It's Marty and Leo, the dynamic duo of director actor. He's also producing this movie.
Budget for
Leonardo
this movie
DiCaprio.
was $200 million, so we will see how it does.
Solid.
I mean, it performed really well at Cannes, so.
This is an Apple movie that's gonna have a box office run, like a traditional theatrical run, and then it's gonna go on Apple TV Plus. So I really like what Apple's doing here in terms of their strategy. And like you said, Angelina, you can't really miss with this combination of talent. So.
I love how Martin Scorsese, he's just like jumping through all the streaming platforms. He did The Irishman for Netflix.
Whoever gives him the money, I think Netflix is not gonna give him that kind of money again. So he's like, Apple, hey, Amazon. Anybody? Okay. And then last but not least, is that even a real movie or is that just a filler title?
You wrote that in, Dan.
I did.
Why are you trying to? Yeah, I was like, that was.
I did write that one in there.
He's like, is that a fill? And I'm like, yeah, you filled it. I didn't want to choose a fifth one. I told you guys, I'm not that excited about a good deal of movies. We're going to go see the Marvels. We're going to go see Dune Part 2, but I'm not excited about Dune Part 2.
Okay. Well, I mean, those are our picks for the remainder of 2023. There's things like the Marvels, like you said. There's Oppenheimer on all three of our lists. Barbie, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1. You have, Indiana Jones, of course, Killers of the Flower Moon. These movies are, Wonka coming out in December. There's a lot of movies yet to come, and you'll be checking all them out. Dune, of course. So let us know what you guys think about those movies. If you have a top 5 list, do leave that in the comment below. And of course, hit the like button if you liked our picks on this segment here. All right, now let's move on. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back after that. We still got lots to get through. We have so much more to talk about. We're going to be talking about The Flash coming out next week. We're going to be talking about the strike that's going on with the WGA, what the SAG and DGA are doing right now. But before we get to all of that, let's take a look at Angelina, who spoke about The Little Mermaid recently and her experience watching that movie and how it compares to the animated version, so the new live-action Little Mermaid that's still out in theaters. Let's take a look at that.
I'll be part of your... You couldn't have just done that one more take so she didn't look so awkward?
Hi everybody, it is Angelina. The Disney's Little Mermaid live-action remake premiered Friday the 26th. It is doing pretty well so far. It is featuring Halle Bailey, Melissa McCarthy, Jonah Howard-King, Daveed Diggs, and it is directed by Rob Marshall, who is known for Chicago, 9, Pirates of the Caribbean, and a lot of other movies. He's done a lot of movies. This movie had a $250 million budget. It has already grossed $118 million. It is the 5th highest ranking movie in a Memorial Day weekend opening history. So that's pretty big. That's pretty big. I love The Little Mermaid. She was my Disney princess. I dressed up as a Little Mermaid for 4 years in a row. My mom had to literally convince me when I was 8 years old to finally dress as something else because I think her friends were worried about me. That's how much I love The Little Mermaid. With that being said, all of the issues that I have with this movie have nothing to do with the casting. I think Halle Bailey was the perfect choice for this movie. Do I know whether or not Rob Marshall was the right director for this movie?
No. There's a lot of directorial decisions that were made as far as like, you couldn't have just done that one more take so she didn't look so awkward in that one scene. Like the really notable historic scene where she's singing and she comes up on the rock, right before she does that, she like scales up the rock with her hands and she looks like, I don't even know. And it probably, I don't think it was her fault. I feel like she probably had no idea. She probably wasn't on the mark and they couldn't redo it one more take, or they didn't care, or they didn't notice that she looked like some sort of like weird slimy sea creature and not in like a cute majestic Little Mermaid way. She just looked weird. I also have questions about the fact that like you have a $250 million budget for this movie. Why is she only wearing one dress the whole time? Like, what? In the cartoon classic, The Little Mermaid has like 3 outfit changes on land. She gets 2 on-land dresses for what is supposed to be like weeks of time. So the first 3 days she's wearing one dress. I'm sorry, you're a guest in a castle? Logically, that doesn't make any sense. They gave you one dress to wear for 3 days? Girl, you couldn't ask for another change of clothes? It doesn't make sense to me in any sort of way. Like, this is supposed to be this extravagant castle. Why does she only get one dress? With that being said, I think Halle Bailey was the best possible choice. She was incredible. Truly incredible. Her hair, her look, her voice, her everything was perfect. This was like a fully reimagined Ariel and I loved every ounce of it. She held that sense of Disney princess. She gave that sort of like incredulous innocence and love and light and growth and magic. She was perfect. I have no questions about her casting whatsoever, which is really funny because a lot of people seem to. That was not my issue with this movie. I had questions about the director. I didn't really get Jonah Hauer-King's casting as Prince Eric until I saw them together, and they have a lot of chemistry. With that being said, the first like half of the movie, he's on his own and she's on her own, and you don't even get to see that chemistry until halfway through the movie and you're like, okay, well now it makes sense. But like his character was just kind of flat. He even had his own solo song and everything like that. They added music, by the way, from the original soundtrack, and I don't know, I really didn't love him. And then when I finally saw them together, I was like, cool, this is great, we love this is awesome. So him, I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever, give or take. I could have had a different Prince Eric. Melissa McCarthy was incredible. She and Halle Bailey made this movie. And Daveed Diggs as Sebastian. He was so great. I loved him so much. You see how there's really highs and lows of how I feel about this movie? I loved so many things that they did. I hated so many things that they did with this movie. Like Flounder. They made him a flounder. He was ugly. Flounder is supposed to be the cute little guppy BFF of Ariel. Why is he so flat and not cute? You couldn't have chosen like a cuter fish? And he wasn't even in the majority of the movie, which made me so sad. With that also being said, the voiceover actor for Flounder did a really good job. It almost sounded like the original cartoon. He was great. There was just so many things where I was like, even King Triton, I didn't love him. He was like, okay. But there were a lot of acting choices that were made that if the director was a stronger director, I just feel like the scenes could have been so much better. The king and Ariel get into a huge fight, and in the movie, he like totally destroys her cavern, right? And that's sort of what makes her flee to be above ground. And because he didn't push that, and that scene was not stronger, she therefore lacked the motivation to do what she did. So it felt very weak. I feel like if Rob Marshall would have done a better job directing and connecting with his actors, this movie could have been f***ing incredible. With that being said, it was kind of like, whatever, like it was good. Yeah, like it was good. It wasn't bad. It was good. It could have been so good. It could have just been so good. Other than that, the music. There was only one song that they added that I was a little confused on. It didn't really add anything to the story. It didn't really have a big purpose other than expanding Halle Bailey's songs in the movie, which I didn't really get. It just didn't further the story. It didn't really add to anything. But other than that, every other song, they really did stick to the original score and then just sort of embellished a little. And I think all of the embellishments were great. I loved Daveed Diggs. He was a great voiceover artist for Sebastian. I didn't know why Aquafina was in the movie. I heard her voice, and from that moment on, I could just only picture Aquafina. I don't know why they did that. I feel like she has such a noticeable voice, and I question her castings a lot of the time because although she's really funny, she's not a great voiceover artist, and she 1000% just sounds like herself all the time. So instead of getting wrapped into her voiceover for this character, I just see Aquafina's face on a bird, and it's really hard to like escape from that. Overall, I give this movie like a 7 out of 10, which is right where the ratings are sitting. I just feel like this movie could have really been incredible, but the director they chose just didn't seem like the right fit for this project. He is known for The Geisha, Chicago, 9. All of these movies are flashy and sexy and just, it's not Disney princess movies. Even the Pirates of the Caribbean, although being a Disney franchise, is not a Disney princess movie. His casting, his hiring is what I question, and I feel like if they would have gone with a different director, we could have had a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 movie. But with that being said, I give it a 7 out of 10, which is right on par with how the rest of the audience is feeling. It makes me sad, but like, you know, it's a good movie. It's not great, it's good. So let us know what you think. Like, share, subscribe. Always leave comments, whether you agree with me or not. Go see the movie and let us know what you think. We'll be back soon. Thanks so much.
I don't hear you.
I don't hear
Oh
you.
yeah, look at that. I just
What?
turned the microphone on. Now it's on, so now I'm talking. Welcome back to the show.
God.
I'm reporting from Parts Unknown. And well, right now it's time for us to talk about something a little more somber. Somber being a relative term here depends on how you take it, depends on what union you're a part of. So now we are into week 6. Okay, this mic is now getting in my way. We're now in week 6 of...
Before you dive into it, because we need to acknowledge Angelina's brilliant review. Wow.
Honestly, I feel the same
you
way.
cannot just jump into the topic and yeah, that was
I've seen it a few times
that was
at
a
this
lot.
point.
Yeah,
but...
I haven't. That's why I was like,
yeah, so I haven't gotten to see the edit back. Honestly, Katriana cut that together and she did such a great job of cutting it together. I was like, oh my gosh, the editing makes it so
great.
much funnier.
It's good.
Yeah, I feel exactly how I felt when I filmed that review. I'm like very sad. It could have been so good.
Yeah,
it's struggling. The movie itself is struggling at the box office now. It had a really good debut and it's doing well domestically, but it's really not hitting with audiences around the world. So, I mean, look, these Disney remakes, live action remakes that still end up somehow being mostly animated, you know, they should just probably start making original movies instead. Like, you know, I mean, I'm sure they can find other fables to turn into a film. Like, who the hell really needs a live action Moana? Like, how long ago did they make the original animated one? Like, it's not like the Little Mermaid came out in the 90s, or like it was like way back in, like, it's been a while since the animated version.
I'm just so sick of seeing remakes. Like, you have so much to live up to, and only half the time it's better than the original.
Yeah, especially because if you remake it, you gotta take some bold decisions to make it. Like, I think there's a couple of examples of these remakes that have done well. In my opinion, I think the Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast are the two best ones. And the reason why is because while they honored the original, they of course have songs and stuff. They felt like they were building on top of the animated ones and maybe doing their own spin in some ways, making some decisions that were different than what the animated movie did. Whereas a lot of the ones that don't work are ones that are basically like obligatory remakes that are kind of treading the same ground as the animated movies did, except that the animation can be more expressive and live action can't be as expressive with colors and shot compositions, so the movie falls flat. And I feel like this is one of those movies where, like, the Flounder looked way better animated, and they were like, we have to make it a flounder. Well, real flounders don't look as good.
I wish she would have cut together like an actual photo of what ended up on my screen for Flounder. He was so ugly. I was like,
have you guys, I don't know if you have seen, okay, let me hold on. Since we're on this topic, I want to show you the thumbnail that I made for the video, because I haven't posted the video yet, but I made the thumbnail for it. So because it's perfect. I actually I researched this. I was like, oh my god, it's actually like a big thing. Like everybody's talking about the fact that Flounder is a character that the design that they totally butchered. So I put it in the thumbnail for the review when the video goes up. This is what the review is gonna look. This is what the thumbnail is gonna look.
My god.
Yeah,
It
he's
just looks like a
so
fish.
ugly.
It
I mean,
just
not
looks
even
so
like a pretty
fishy.
fish. Like there are so many
No.
beautiful fish. He is like, I don't even want to look at him. They didn't even choose like an interesting looking fish. Like,
Nope.
I don't know. It's
Uh,
just too live action for me. Too
It's
real.
yeah. I guess I'll just wait to see it on Disney Plus. I'm sure it's gonna end up there in a few weeks. So yeah. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about Hollywood striking, and more specifically, the WGA is striking. They're in week 6 of their strike now. And so it's been a month and a half. It looks like the AMPTP, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, they still have not come back to the table. I mean, it seems like both sides still haven't come back to the table, so the strike continues. However, DGA and the AMPTP did come to the table, and they struck an initial agreement, which was ratified this past week. So the DGA will not be striking because they've got their deal in place. But before I go into any more detail, I do want to ask Angelina, you read into this a little bit, you did some research. So can you give us a little more insight into what the DGA's deal is like? And like where do they go from here?
So the DGA deal with the AMPTP is essentially they're going to get a 76% increase in foreign residuals, 21% increase in streaming residuals on all of the largest platforms. This deal is only for 3 years. It's been approved, but it is still tentative. It hasn't been passed by all of the DGA members yet. So that's all we're waiting on like full finalization. But the fact that they came to a deal before striking was really great. And it actually builds in sort of factors around AI, which is really interesting. A part of the contract, the Guild will also get 2 meetings a year in order to discuss advances in AI technology. I'm assuming to protect the DGA members themselves, but it feels like a really interesting caveat to the contract. But overall, DGA had previously provided some of the details, including that the increases in minimums would be 5%, 4%, and 3.5%. So overall, they're going to get a 12% increase in forward payment and 76% increase in back-end residuals, which is incredible. That's great.
It's huge.
Those are big numbers. Like those are significant increases. So it looks like, and this is going to tie into what I'm going to go to next. When they initially started to negotiate, it looks like the DGA and the MPTP decided they weren't going to talk to the press about the negotiations while they were ongoing, which is something that the WGA and the MPTP did not do, which I think is probably one of the reasons why they ended up exacerbating their situation, and now they're striking, WGA striking, that is. Now, recently, SAG went into negotiations with the MPTP as well, and the Screen Actors Guild, they recently announced, or rather it was in the news recently, I believe I saw it on Deadline, that SAG and MPTP have decided not to talk to the press during negotiations either. Now, their current contract runs till June 30th, but the fact that they have decided not to talk to the media during the negotiations, I think it only be a good sign considering how well it played out for the DGA, who themselves have not gone on strike since 1987. So it seems like most often they tend to get the deal done, but a 3-year deal is, now they have to come back to the table in 3 years, which is not a very long time. But at anywho, Mags, what do you think about the negotiations that SAG are having with the AMPTP now? WGA is on strike. DGA's got their deal. Do you think the producers here are trying to divide and conquer? Because when you look at what the SAG guys are asking for, what SAG is looking to get from their deal versus what the WGA and the DGA have been looking for, and what WGA still is looking for, it looks like there's a lot of similarities in terms of what they're requesting, specifically with things like AI protection, like making sure their jobs are not replaced by AI, fair compensation, a living wage in many ways. And do you think that the fact that the WGA did not get what
I'm lost already.
What WGA didn't get and the DGA somehow got, like, very easily, relatively speaking. Where do you think SAG is going to land? Like, are they going to go on strike, which they've already authorized, or are they going to end up getting everything they're looking for, or do we end up somewhere in the middle? Like, what's going to happen with SAG?
I have no idea. Why would I know that then?
Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking,
Well-
like, based on what's happened so far, where do you think this is headed with SAG? Do you think they end up going on strike too?
Overall, I feel like
I
if
mean,
SAG has to
yeah.
strike, they will. I think that's sort of the bottom line there.
Also, seeing the numbers increase in the
Yeah.
end, that's really like reinforcing. And speaking of which, like, I just found an article before we started recording that in like kind of, I don't know, united, sorry, no, in the unity, sorry, with like screenwriters in US, like the rest of the world, including Ukraine, is going to rally together on Wednesday. So a lot of like countries, Canada, UK, Ireland, Germany, France, Poland, Netherlands, Argentina, Italy, Belgium, Bulgaria, Colombia, Denmark, South Korea, Spain, Mexico, and Israel, and even Ukraine are gonna go and rally on Wednesday. So maybe they won't quit or like kind of stop working, but I think that kind of shows the promise that what's happening in US, it has this kind of ripple effect, and it might affect the way the industry stands everywhere else in the world, not only in US. So to answer your question, yeah, most definitely SAG might try, like that my hunch is, but obviously as I said to you, I have no idea what
I mean, negotiations just started on Wednesday. So, and we have until June 30th. So I really think that the AMPTP is going to sort of meet SAG's demands to a certain level. I think they're going to be more pressured by the fact that the WGA is still striking. And then you have the DGA, who did settle for great numbers, like a great expansion upon what they need for the next 3 years. I think the AMPTP is put in a place now where they have to like work with SAG, because if we go on strike, like there's nothing being filmed.
And SAG is a much bigger union than the other two, right?
Yeah, because the one thing right now is like theatrical runs have been shut down. A lot of game shows, a lot of talk shows have all gone dark as far as right now goes. But if SAG goes on strike, we don't just go on strike for like movies and commercials shut down, shut down, this, like, done. And so I think it's a force to be reckoned with, and I think they're going to want to settle before June 30th. So no, I don't think that there is going to be a strike. I do think SAG will strike if we don't get what we need, kind of thing.
Yeah, so it looks like they will strike. They have authorized one if need be, but hopefully, but you're thinking they're gonna get the deal. They're gonna get what they're looking for.
With the world support as well, like even freaking Ukraine, come on, even them, like.
I mean, they're in the middle of a war. I mean, that's significant for sure.
That's something,
the fact that they're willing to do that, but all of that begs the question: where does this leave the WGA? What's going to happen with them? Are they going to get what they're looking for? I mean, and why, if the DGA have gotten what they were looking for, and let's say SAG, for the sake of argument, gets a deal too, then why is the WGA being left out in the cold? Like, I'm purely asking out of a sense of curiosity, because I'm wondering what you guys are thinking, and then I'll say what I'm thinking. But why do you think that? Well, what's different with the WGA? Why are they not getting anything that they've been looking for?
I don't know the insides of exactly what they're asking for. I don't think they've made that public as far as like the parameters of what they're looking for and why. I personally know 2 writers in writer rooms on set of different shows. I've seen them bounce around from like 3 to 4 different shows, and all I hear is the pay is garbage unless they're given an episode. All I hear is it's a really toxic work environment. Both of them have left shows because it was not an environment worth working in, specifically as a woman. So I can only imagine the broad the broad scope of things, again, I don't think the WGA has made it public what exactly they aren't settling, but I do know that the residuals have decreased. I know some writers are making less than actors on streaming movies, and there needs to just be a better division of wealth as far as those things go. It can't be the producer makes exponentially more than the writer and the actor. Like, that's not
It don't you think it might be something actually brutal if they don't even publicly
Look,
go and say what their demands are, because
no,
Yeah.
well,
must be dirty.
I don't know. The demands that they're making are similar to what the other unions are asking for, which is things like, an improvement in royalties that they get from the writing credits, especially from streaming service providers who
Yeah.
basically, a lot of writers today work for shows and movies that end up on streaming services directly. Like, there's comparatively speaking, basic cable and network television is a much smaller chunk of the pie these days than streaming services are. However, those streaming services don't really give out royalties nearly at the same level or with the same structure
at
as
all.
as
Like,
broadcast
at
networks
all.
do. Exactly. So, like,
So
whereas
what's
you
the
might be making,
difference? So
Angelina,
what's
the numbers difference, right?
As
In
far
terms
as
of, if you were, so for example, if you were working as a writer on a show for ABC, the network, versus for Netflix, like, what's the difference in terms
so
of
the breakdown of residuals, obviously it varies based on each writer's contract, whatever. That is a big part of the negotiations for every actor, for every contract. You negotiate when you sign on to a project what you're going to get on the back end, right? So your residuals are based off of end term distribution. If you were on a commercial, how many times the commercial gets played, you get paid every time the commercial is paid after your buyout. It was the same way for shows, right? So you write a show or you act in a show, every time that episode airs, you get a certain percentage of what is making, because they're airing it for money, right? So every time they air it, they make money. So
there's
you make
license
a portion
license
of that
fees.
money. With streaming, residuals disappeared because now it's up on streaming, and how many times it gets played has nothing to do with anything, because it's just like you only get a buyout. So let's say I make a movie and my pay is $20,000. It used to be $20,000 and 5% residuals. I don't get the residuals. So the long-term longevity of what I'm getting paid has been cut in half, because the front pay used to, like the upfront pay used to just be a very small portion of the overall payment you get for being on a project. So now people are not able to pay their rent and do this and do that, and their income has been severely suffocated by the new streaming platforms. And so something has to change by way of, like, either we need more money up front or residuals on the back end need to be reinstated for streaming.
But hang on. So, okay, if I understand correctly, it's kind of streaming platforms that kind of caused all the mayhem. Mayhem.
That's 1,000%.
And
So
there's some insider
why
reports
is it
out
only
there
now? But hang on,
that
like, why is it happening only now? Why? Because
COVID.
Netflix and everything, COVID.
1,000%. It was COVID. People were just trying to get through COVID. Nobody really knew. I mean, just think about how streaming platforms have grown consistently in the last 3 years. Think about how now primetime television, most people are canceling their cable subscriptions. I know 2 people with a cable subscription. And then on top of that, you think about the fact that a lot of content that used to go to the movie theater now is only in the movie theater for 1 to 2 weeks, and then it goes to streaming. Everything is now circled and based off of streaming, and nobody knew the impact or how that was going to affect everything really until, I want to say, in the last year.
Well,
so
I would say it's been building, like, but COVID, it really exacerbated it, because it only, like, for example, the traditional 6-month theatrical window or 8 weeks or whatever it was, like, it's out the door. Like, every studio has negotiated with distributors now that they can, after 4 to 6 weeks, they can put a movie on streaming if they wanted to, and sometimes even less if they decide that that's what's best financially for the movie business, for that movie. Like, Fast X domestically is now available to buy on iTunes or like Android, Google Play Store, whereas it's still in theaters, and internationally, still in theaters, but you can go watch it at home if you wanted to. And that's a big movie. It's not like a Halloween movie that's a small horror film that they, did that day and date release. But I think there was also some rumors or reports out there this week that Netflix is one of the big holdouts on this negotiations. They're really driving hard, and they're probably the worst offender in all of this in terms of the big thing that the WGA wants is more transparency on the viewing numbers of the shows and movies that are made for streaming, so that their residuals can be proportional to that. Because people are watching the shows. Clearly people are subscribing to Netflix and looking at all this content. So why can't the writers be paid according to that, similarly to how traditional broadcast and network television shows and movies, in theaters, how those writers get paid? So I do believe that until companies like Netflix are willing to kind of give a little more ground, it's just going to be a while until they get a deal here.
Just for like a sort of, so in stepping down as co-CEO, Hastings was making $500,000 a year as his base salary. That's not where he was making money. He was getting $2.5 million in stock options. So it was like, instead of paying actors residuals, they're paying out their chairman and their CEOs and all of the financial people on the front of Netflix millions of dollars in stock options, which is like, you can't afford to pay your actors.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's
writers,
not quite apples to apples in terms of how that money works. However, it's a fair point to make that they should be able to pay the writers more. I do think that given where the two sides are far apart still on the residuals and opacity on streaming numbers and stuff like that, I feel like usually it takes longer for the consumers to feel the pain from a strike like this, because there's still a lot of content in the back end that Netflix can keep throwing out, and international content that Netflix has a lot of, where these strikes are not affecting the production of those movies and TV shows. That it's going to take a while before the consumer is going to start to drive Netflix and other studios to push for a deal. Meanwhile, I think the writers will continue to feel the heat, and that's just unfortunate because they're the ones who are struggling the most here. I think it's going to take a while here. This might be like the last strike in 07, 08 took like 6 months almost, it seems, like, if I remember correctly. And I do think this is probably going to last for a few months longer, even if SAG is able to come to an agreement. And if that does happen and SAG and DGA both have a deal, it's going to give even more leverage to the studios and the producers, because, well,
but I think that's going to work either way. I think if the WGA doesn't have what they need, I think SAG will sort of help push things one way or the other, either sort of to push the WGA to settle or push the studios to settle. I do think there's still this very much, we're all in this together. Even though the DGA settled on a deal, I'd be happy with the deal that the DGA was offered. You know what I mean? I think there's still a sense of we're all in this together and we all want what's best for our overall well-being as a whole, versus we're trying to just take what we can get, kind of. That mindset doesn't really exist right now. I think we're all
and like, I'll be honest with you, I don't think anybody's going to be crossing a picket line anytime soon, even if the DGA and SAG have a deal. So yeah, I mean, look, we're going to keep following this story. It looks like this is going to go on for a while. If you guys, are looking into this and you have any thoughts, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think about the strike, as well as, of course, what's going on with the DGA and SAG. If you are part of the WGA, tell us what you have been up to of late. How are you making your ends meet? It's very a serious thing for people who are out of a job and can't book the kind of jobs that they have been working in their entire careers in. But yeah, in the meantime, listen to the podcast that we have. It's on Spotify, Apple, all the major podcast providers out there. Thanks for listening to us talk about this. We're going to continue to follow the story in the weeks to come. But right now, we're just going to switch gears and go into more of the technology sector that we usually don't cover. But this is connected to movies as well, because The Apple Vision Pro was recently announced at a keynote presentation and this whole Apple event, as they usually do. And I have to say, for the kind of hardware that's in this category, like AR, VR headsets, this is certainly a game changer in terms of what it can do, right? If you look at the thing itself, like here we go, this is on screen now. That's what it looks like. This is about as from the movies what a VR glasses would look like as you can get. However, my question is, does it really do anything that you can't already do with an iPhone, an iPad, or a MacBook, or, well, not even an Apple product? Like, if you have a smartwatch, if you have a smartphone, if you have a tablet, if you have a laptop, and a TV, do you really need smart, like, AR, VR glasses? Like, do you really need an augmented reality headset like a Vision Pro?
Yeah,
Max, what do you
I can agree with you on this one, Dan, because I was partially disappointed that this is a whole new operational system. This is like another, it's not an iPhone, it's not an iPad, it's not iMac, it's not a MacBook Air, a MacBook Pro, it's its own thing. So it's like another way you're gonna like sort of use it, but it's somewhat all those devices in one. I am excited about it, and like me and my partner, we're gonna be investing in one only because for our work, we think it's gonna be a life-changing. We work remotely. That's why the idea of taking the office with you and just really like losing your surroundings and being able to really immerse yourself with the work and have this functionality within your, wrist to switch between the tabs, it's something mind-blowing, and we will benefit greatly from that. But having said that, if I wasn't working, remotely online, in marketing and software and stuff, I really don't think I would find that much need for it. So I completely agree with you, Dan. Like, it's a very expensive piece of technology that it's not made for a mass market just yet, though. But that's why I wanted to say that, like, it's not for a mass market just yet. Because same as with the AirPods, like, no one was excited for these when they announced them. And now we cannot live without them. So it took some iteration, it took some time, it took some convincing. And something that Apple has proven continuously over the years is that they have the best technology on the market. And metaverse, that can just kind of like slow down, like the whole Oculus. They've solved so many issues that other goggles had that it's just unbeatable at this stage. That's why even if they roll it out for their small market first, it's still a strong case to give it a go because it's Apple, and I don't know, the world's catching up. And oh yeah, and interestingly enough, on the day that announced Vision Pro, all the laptops went on like a crazy sale, and even the new MacBook Air that they announced at the same time as that Vision Pro, it's only like $1K. It's almost like the cheap, or $800 or $900. It's one of the cheapest MacBook Airs ever released, and it's the newest one because they know it's people that have like exactly people that have laptops, they're going to be moving probably for Vision Pro, but then they start to make their laptops that were once only for the elite kind of thing. They'll make it more accessible. So there is plan there. They might lose money at first, but they're definitely boost their economy with the more laptops. And sorry, one more thing. Yeah. And also to answer, the technology in this thing is so advanced that it was a strategic move to make it inaccessible just yet. Because of the resources, they cannot produce that thing on the mass market just yet. That's why they still need a little bit more time. But I'm really excited because they really secured their position in terms of what they're capable of, and in terms of what the future of the VR goggles. Can we call them VR goggles?
Well,
Vision Pro.
they're VR and AR and in
Yeah.
fact,
There you
maybe
go.
more AR than VR, because you're
Right.
meant to be able, like spatial computing. They're not calling it AR, VR, they're calling it spatial
Spatial
computing, which,
computing, right?
for
So I
example,
actually have like a really interesting question about the health risks of this going on the mass market. Like you think
Right.
about many people are already showing signs of like eyesight aging and like retinal aging and everything like that. I'm wondering what the health risks pose for having this here for so long. Like I know my
Yeah.
eyes hurt long term and I use
So-
blue light glasses in order to try to avoid some of the
They-
technological kickbacks.
That's the point. They thought about it. So the problem with Oculus was that it completely disconnects you from reality.
Yeah.
Whereas here you have the reality and the kind of computer reality integrated together. That's why, because that was my first question when I saw the demo. I was like, okay, goodbye social skills and whatever.
Yeah.
But you can actually see in the demo that if someone appears in front of you, that actually, like, the person actually appears in front of you, in front of your computer screen, and you're able to hear that person automatically. They really thought about all those problems. And it's almost like they've... the reason that they waited for so long is that they really wanted to wait and see what competitors are going to come up with and really look at the pain points and struggles of like all other technology. And they really just almost like collected all those worries and issues with that technology, and they solved it. Like, that's why it's justifiable that it costs $3.5K at the moment, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just really excited about it. I really
Dan
am.
and I are kind of like, we'll wait and see. And Max is like, no, I'm going to have one.
I'm going to have it.
because here's the thing. Here's how I looked at this announcement. I was like, okay, because this is something that's been in the works for a long time. I had to be like, at one point, people thought watches would replace smartphones. Didn't happen.
No.
And the reason why was because a smartphone does a lot of those things better. It's a bigger screen. It has more computing power. It's got a camera that you can use more naturally. You can move around. You can't like
yes,
do
of
this with
course,
your hand with your watch with a camera.
Don't think that's going to replace laptops whatsoever. However, it will.
So that is all you need.
Something that's not like trying to take over my whole life.
But
Right.
but aren't phones already doing that? That's the whole point.
Right. But the thing is, you can take a phone
in the
and you
air.
can put it in your pocket, and it's still useful to you. Like it's
Yeah.
gonna ring, and you're gonna take a phone call.
Yeah,
This
that's why
is
I'm
only
not. That's what
useful
I'm
when
saying.
it's on your head.
It's
you know?
not gonna take. It's not gonna replace those.
Literally your eye health. Like I know so many people that wear glasses now just because they've been on the computer for years. I feel like this will exacerbate that issue. I have fears about hacking. I think that could be a huge issue, especially if all of this is like right in front of your face and they can hack in and see what
It's
you live.
they also solve that. Like maybe watch the ad first. Yeah, because it's actually gonna.
Or data privacy. Here's the thing. I'm like, but that's not even a big concern for me in this regard, particularly regarding the Vision Pro, because I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter because data is like, if you are on an iPhone or an iPad, you're sharing that
Apple
kind of
has
data
suffered
anyway.
several data breaches that impacted the iTunes Store, iCloud, and iPhone operating systems. This was May 23.
But okay,
Right.
guys. But now we're arguing the safety of Apple devices.
But that's not,
we all
that's
have
not the
MacBooks.
product itself.
Yes.
Right?
Like, what are we talking about?
It's
like,
just mainly that inside of your home on that scale, like you're using your home as sort of the backboard for everything. And I think that's the biggest issue.
But you're recording your home and your surroundings through the camera all the
this
time.
is my wall.
Yeah.
You don't see that. You know what I
But
mean?
when you know,
Well-
but it's being registered.
Yeah.
Like you're meant to cover your face, like your camera, essentially wherever. But like if you have security issues, we should have security issues already with all our devices. Like literally all of them have possibility to track you. This won't make a difference if those devices are already spying on us, so to say.
Here's like to wrap this conversation, 'cause
Yeah.
we can talk about this at length forever because it is a very, very
Let's
interesting
please do.
product. But and there's pros and cons to it. The fact that it can only lead you to be more isolated, but they've got some features that will help you still be aware of your surroundings and very much be able to interact with people around you. However, it has limited utility. I don't think it's going to be as ubiquitous as people used to think AR VR systems would be.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it will have value. It's at $3,500. Not a lot of people are going to be able to buy it and afford it, but the ones that do will basically, I think the first generation of this headsets will essentially be non-beta beta testers, because it's going to take them probably 2 or 3 iterations to really get this to where I think it needs to go, and it's still too big of a footprint that this has for it to be useful. It still feels like you have a phone that you have like a shoulder satchel, and the thing, like back in the 90s what cell phones were. I think we're still in that stage of AR VR headsets. We need to get to the point where you can, like, literally the glasses I'm wearing is all you need, like what Google Glass tried to be, except it was still pretty dense. I think until we get to that level, spatial computing AR VR is not going to be quite what we have dreamed up of in sci-fi and our greatest of imagination. So it's Apple's now, it's basically Apple saying, hey, we are now in the game. So, and that changes the game. Apple always changes the game when they enter any kind of arena. So we'll see where this goes. You guys tell us what you think. Is this something that you guys are interested in? Is this the kind of headset that you've been waiting for to jump into the AR VR world? Will you be buying it? If so, let us know in the comments. Of course, you can listen to our podcast on Spotify and Apple and all the major podcasting platforms out there. And we do thank you for checking us out. I know there's a lot of content out there about the Apple Vision Pro, so we appreciate that you took the time to listen to us talk about it. I think everybody has an interesting opinion. We've got them across the spectrum in terms of how we are thinking about the Vision Pro, but I'm sure we'll be talking about it again in the future. I know Disney is interested in doing a lot of collaboration work, so maybe we'll talk about that in that regard. But right now, let's move on to our final topic of the day. We're going to be talking about The Flash. The Flash is coming out next week. It's the newest movie from the DCU or the DCEU, whichever way you want to refer to it. But the question we want to ask right now is not only like how much money is it going to make, what are the reviews saying, but will there be a sequel? Because there's so much drama surrounding Ezra Miller on this movie that I want to ask you ladies, like Mags, Angelina, what do you think this movie is gonna do at the box office? Do you think it's gonna get favorable reviews, which right now it's looking mixed? And then, of course, will there be a sequel to this? So, Mags, I want to start off with you. You can answer any of those questions in order, in whichever order you prefer, or address only one of them. Do you think there's going to be a sequel, and how good is this movie going to perform?
I have
That's
no
coming out next
idea.
week.
I didn't know there was Flash 1, so...
Really? This is
Yeah,
news to
no.
you?
Yeah,
Oh,
like,
wow,
I
okay.
am not in the topic at all. I'm not a fan of that universe,
Superhero
so I have
movies.
no idea. I'm so sorry.
You haven't seen the trailers. You have not seen the Flash trailer. You have not seen Michael Keaton come back as Batman or
No.
Sasha Kaya as
Is he?
Supergirl or
No.
I haven't
Ben
watched the
Affleck.
trailer either, but it has 10 out of 10 on IMDb already, which is kind of crazy.
So people are excited for it. That's all we need to know.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't usually put much stock into IMDb. Okay,
Are
let
you
me actually.
gonna see it,
71%
Dan?
on Rotten Tomatoes is kind of like, eh. I don't know. There's just been so much craziness around Ezra Miller that unfortunately I feel like the overall movie is going to be impacted by that.
The financial performance, yes, I do believe that's going to get impacted by that for sure.
Yes, but also Michael Keaton coming back as Batman is exciting.
It is. It is very exciting. I mean, look, this movie's got a 71% score right now on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a week out. There's 118 reviews out there. They are, coming from all, ends of the spectrum. You've got reviews where people are talking about, look, as good as a movie as this can be, you just can't think of it separated from the fact that Ezra Miller is still the star and all the stuff that has been going on with him. You still have that's
Wasn't
still in
he
the back of your
fired
mind.
from Fantastic Beasts and everything?
He was.
How is
yeah.
He was, right.
And
okay.
and for this week we got some news that Ezra Miller's gonna be on the red carpet premiere for this movie, but he's not gonna be allowed to say anything. So basically he's gonna be there taking pictures, but he's not really gonna say much. Now the critics are kind of all over the place on this in terms of saying, hey, this is one of the best things DC Comics has put out there, while some people are saying, look, no matter what you say, still, as you're watching Ezra Miller on screen, it's kind of hard to do that. It's similar to the Army Hammer. So not similar in the sense of the nature of what's going on behind the scenes and the actors' lives, but like when you watch The Death on the Nile, you're like, oh, it's Army Hammer. I don't know. Like, and it's like Ezra Miller. I don't know. But like, it's a movie that really does pay homage to a lot of the eras of the DC, comics. And this is not a spoiler because, and I'll put up the spoiler warning just in case, but this isn't a spoiler because the director, Andy Muschietti, who's done a pretty good job with this movie, he said this in one of the press tour interviews that he's been doing, where he basically said that there is a cameo, there's many cameos in this movie, but there was a cameo at the end of the movie where you see Nicolas Cage's Superman. And I know you're wondering, when was there a Nicolas Cage Superman movie? There wasn't, but there was one in development for a long time, which I believe Guillermo del Toro was gonna direct, and
what?
Nicolas
Wait.
Cage
Literally, we're
was
both
gonna
like,
be Superman,
what?
and the movie got
Nick
so far.
Cage as a Superman in Guillermo del Toro directed movie. That was a thing once. When was that?
I believe this was meant. This was it Guillermo del Toro? Okay, let me see. This was supposed to be called Superman Lives.
That's
Angelina, do you believe that?
I don't know. I'm like, this sounds really outworldly. I'm like, I don't.
No. This is real. Actually, it wasn't Guillermo del Toro. I'm wrong about that. This was a Tim Burton movie called Superman Lives. Tim Burton, so who did the first two Batman movies.
Weird.
It's still weird that it's Nick Cage,
I mean Nick Cage, but also Tim Burton directing a superhero movie.
But this is now he's probably trying to make sense that he would have picked Nick Cage to be the Superman, and this movie would have followed the comic book arc, The Death of Superman, and this was in development in the 90s. It was meant to be a reboot of the whole franchise, and Tim Burton, of course, cast Nick Cage. They did it get far enough that they were literally days away from filming before this was scrapped. I forget the reason why exactly. There's a really good documentary about this out there called The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened, which you can check out. It was released in 2015, and the documentary covers all of the behind the scenes stuff. And you have Kevin Smith in there, Tim Burton, Nicolas Cage talking about it. And so as you can imagine, because they were days away from filming, this to-be movie had costumes and everything. Like, they had everything they needed. So the fact that this movie kind of goes in and has a cameo from Nicolas Cage as Superman, where he doesn't really say much or anything, but it's one of those situations where I'm like, look, they're having fun with this, and that's not the only Superman you see in this movie, like, hint, but and of course you have Supergirl, and you have two Batmen in this movie, Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton. So it's a movie that if you're a fan of DC, I think you're going to enjoy, just simply because of all the Easter eggs and all the connections it has. It's also gotten some praise for the fact that it has a very heartfelt story, and Ezra Miller's performance is getting praised. So I'm interested in seeing this movie. I want to see just how well it does at the box office. Right now, nobody really knows how much the Ezra Miller drama is going to affect the box office in terms of who's going to show up to see this movie, how people are going to react, because some critics out there are already saying we can't really put the Ezra Miller drama to the side. It kind of affects your experience with the film. I don't know how that's going to translate to the average, film goer, because a lot of people don't know so much about what's going on with Ezra Miller. Some people might know, oh yeah, something is going on, but they don't really know like the exact details.
I literally looked up what did Ezra, and then it finished, what did Ezra Miller do?
Yeah, exactly. So there is a lot out there, but I'm going to be honest with you. I think this movie will do well enough to probably get close to 500 million, if I had to guess. Whether it goes beyond that, I don't know.
Its budget was 200, I think. So
it's your standard comic book budget these days. But what do you guys think? Do you think that this movie, if it does well, do you think it's going to warrant a sequel? I mean, we have already kind of heard from Andy Muschietti. He said that Flash, Ezra Miller is his Flash. He does not want to recast. However, I think it would be a mistake, and it's probably a huge risk on the part of Warner Brothers if they were to continue with him in the role. Like, you can always recast, and like what they did with Rhodey in the MCU, and it
doesn't do well. Like when you recast a role, but you want to continue it within a short amount of time, it almost never does well, because it's like, how do you continue that story considering there's a whole different person on screen? It does affect the viewership 1000%. It affects the experience. So I can understand why they wouldn't want to recast it. I think as long as Ezra Miller gets his shit together, I mean, his behavior was not great. He didn't do anything that was like super crazy, right? Like Winona Ryder stole from all of these literal stores, literally got caught shoplifting. She has a career. There was a little bit of a break there, but like she still has a career. Her career never really ended. Ezra Miller like allegedly stole alcohol from somebody's home. There were like several videos of him acting like an absolute asshole, but that was also the same with Game of Thrones dude, Kit Harington. He had a lot of behavioral issues. I think.
What about Robert Downey Jr. and even Tom Cruise before Tropic Thunder? I mean, Robert Downey Jr.
It doesn't make it okay. I just think that they will continue with him as long as he is able to prove that he is not all of these, the sum total of all of these things.
Also, depending how good the source material is.
Yeah.
Like, look, the cautionary tale of The Witcher. That won't stand because the series sucks. So the recasting is pointless at this stage.
Yeah. I mean, look,
was the
this
Flash
movie
good? Was the first one?
Yeah, it's adapting the Flashpoint story from the comics, but it's really loosely adapting it. It's not really doing it exactly the way it's done in the comics or even the animated.
This is the first movie, Max. This is the first movie they're doing for it. There was a TV show series. It was like CW or something.
Yeah, I mean, the Flash ran for literally like 9 seasons on TV, and ironically, this Flash movie was originally announced right before
I saw him in Snyder's Cut. So that's the only relation to Flash.
This movie has been in development for 9 years, and the entire Flash show ran for 9 years, started and ended before this movie has come out. Crazy. So it's been a long time coming. Yeah. I'm cautiously optimistic about it personally. I do believe with the new DCU reboot or soft reboot that James Gunn and Peter Safran are doing, they don't even if they do a sequel to this, which they already have a script ready to go at Warner Brothers, that's been ready for a while. I don't think is going to be anytime soon that a sequel comes out. So there's plenty of time for there to be a comeback story for Ezra Miller, like what Robert Downey Jr. went through, and then with Iron Man rekindled his career, and now people don't even really talk about what all the stuff that he did before he entered the MCU. So things could change, but if I was a betting man, I wouldn't really bet on it right now, because there's been no indication that they're going to continue with him in the role, Ezra Miller that is, and there's certainly been no indication on the part of James Gunn that they're even thinking about bringing this Flash into the new DCU. I mean, there will be a Flash in the new DCU, that's for sure. Will it be played by Ezra Miller? Nobody knows. So I guess we'll see. I mean, we're going to watch this movie next week. We're going to talk about it. So I guess we'll be discussing this further.
I will do my homework.
I'm excited to see it. Yeah.
So with that in mind, I do appreciate you guys joining us on the show this week. It's been a long show. We had a lot to talk about today. We went through like 5 or 6 different topics. We even dipped back into our foot into the pond, as you will, and Angelina discussed the Little Mermaid. That was a bad pun, and I immediately regretted saying that. But please be our friend. Follow us on social media. And if you don't want to follow us on social media, at least listen to our podcast. We do appreciate that. It does help us out. And leave a like and do subscribe to the channel. Also curious.
One more pun. I beg you.
This mic is not connected to anything. As a side note, thanks for watching. Anything else?
One more pun.
Do you think one more pun?
Yeah.
One more pun. I don't know. I mean, is it really Bayhem if Michael Bay is not directing the
We're
Mayhem?
pun. Get it? We're done. We're pun.
We're puns. Oh yeah, we're pun. No, that's a really bad pun.
Sorry.
It's a really bad pun.
You can always count on me for the really bad puns and the dad jokes. That's what I'm here for.
I gotta look at. I have a dad joke book somewhere that I'm gonna find, and then I'm just gonna like start riffing off dad jokes randomly, and that's gonna be a lot of fun. But yeah, I did. This was a great experiment. Roland gave me an idea. He has a microphone that actually I think his is connected, but the audio guy doesn't really patch it into the mix. I would much prefer you
put that down, like on a mount or something, just
like on a mount. I have to find another mount. My mount is already being used by the mic that's actually working. Anyway, so next week we'll be back with another show. We'll be talking about the Flash. We'll probably be talking about some other stuff. Maybe there's something will happen with the WGA strike. Lots to go through. Have a fantastic week ahead, everybody. And of course, as always, stay curious. We will see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay.
May the
that's enough
force
with the
be with
mic.
you too.